Okay, let's jump right in. You know that feeling when you just can't seem to get things done? Well, your lack of discipline isn't a character flaw. It's actually a hidden environmental design problem. Today, in this explainer, we're going to look closely at a concept that completely flips the script on how we view our daily productivity and our self-worth. It's called the architecture of failure. Picture this scenario, because I know we've literally all been there. Have you ever sat down at your desk, incredibly determined to finally start that big project or, I don't know, entirely change your life, only to find yourself just staring at the wall? You sit there and this heavy, almost unexplainable cloud of fatigue washes over you. Your immediate reaction is probably to blame yourself, right? You feel that intense guilt, assuming you just lack willpower or that you simply don't want it badly enough.
But here's the massive, game-changing realization we've got to start with. You aren't lazy. Self-control and willpower are fragile resources, and they absolutely crumble when you're trying to operate in a poorly designed space. You are currently living in an environment that is actively sabotaging you. It's a space designed for your failure, not your success.
Which brings us to Section 1, the myth of willpower.
We always kind of think of discipline as this internal muscle we just need to flex harder. But the reality, every single object in your sightline right now is a psychological cue, essentially auctioning off your future to the highest bidder of convenience. This is what James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, calls choice architecture. It's the idea that human behavior is heavily shaped by what is most visible and accessible to us. You see, our brains evolved for immediate survival and energy conservation. So when you choose the easy distraction over the hard work, your brain isn't being lazy. It's operating exactly as it was designed to. It is simply following the path of least resistance that your room provides. And this brilliantly illustrates how that path of least resistance actually plays out in real life. If you wake up and your phone is the very first thing you see sitting right there on your nightstand, but the journal you swore you'd start writing in is buried at the bottom of a heavy drawer, well, you're guaranteeing your own failure. You haven't made the good habit obvious, and you certainly haven't made the bad habit invisible. You've engineered a space where failing is simply the easiest thing to do, and your brain, it will gladly take the easy out.
Let's move into Section 2, Trapped by the Persona.
Because, the physical friction of buried journals and visible phones, that's really only half the story. There was a much deeper, completely draining psychological friction at play here. Carl Jung talked about the persona, the psychological mask we wear to please others. But he suggested that what we carry in our physical environment is often just a physical version of this exact mask. We organize our lives in our spaces for what is called maximum legibility. We keep certain books on the shelf or arrange our furniture in a specific, maybe even stifling way just to look correct or acceptable to our parents, our partners, or society at large. We are terrified that changing our space might make us inconvenient or disappointing to other people.
The real problem with this physical mask? It is absolutely exhausting to maintain. Every single time you look at an object in your room that represents an expectation you don't actually hold, like say a book you'll never read, or a piece of decor you bought just to look sophisticated, you are leaking psychic energy. You are draining your own internal battery just to maintain a performance for an audience that isn't even in the room. So, the crucial point is this. When you come home at the end of a long day and you feel entirely hollowed out, it isn't necessarily because of your job. It's because your room has become a polished prison of who you think you should be, rather than a sanctuary for who you actually are. You're carrying the heavy weight of a space that doesn't actually belong to your true self. Let's look at Section 3, Engineering Your Mind. It is time to stop being a passive, statistical cog in our own homes, falling victim to whatever random cues are lying around. I want you to look around your space right now and honestly evaluate this. Is your bedroom or office a museum of the person you've been? Is it filled with the clutter of past performances and outdated expectations? Or is it a sanctuary designed specifically for the person you are becoming? If it's a museum, we need to do a space audit. This space audit relies directly on James Clear's laws of behavior change. Step 1, make good habits incredibly obvious. If you want to start reading before bed, place the book literally on your pillow. If you want to work out in the morning, leave your running shoes right by the bed. Think of it as setting a brilliant, helpful trap for your future self. So when tomorrow morning rolls around, you literally trip over those running shoes. Step 2, make bad habits invisible. Remove the cues. If you scroll for hours, put your phone's charger in another room entirely. The whole goal here is to stop fighting your brain and start manipulating your space so that the right behavior becomes the absolute path of least resistance. Moving to Section 4, Reclaiming Internal Authority. Once you've removed the physical friction by rearranging your habit cues, you have to address the internal authority of your room.
You must eliminate the psychological clutter that's serving only to appease someone else's aesthetic or expectations. Carl Jung famously argued that fidelity to the law of one's own being is the absolute only path to true health. Basically, you cannot be healthy if you're living in a space that contradicts your inner nature. This means you have to stop begging for permission to exist in your own home. You have to stop explaining your choices or justifying your aesthetic to anyone else.
This is the essence of individuation, designing for your truth. When you actively remove the weight of others' tastes from your physical space, a really remarkable thing happens. Your own internal authority begins to rise. Because you no longer need to justify your existence in your own space, you just exist. And that quiet, grounded presence, it naturally commands respect, first from yourself and eventually from everyone else who enters your life.
Now look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Undertaking this kind of transformation is a terrifying leap. It requires you to look around and admit that the normal life you were sold and the physical space you built to represent it was actually a trap. And that can feel deeply uncomfortable at first. But you need to know this: you aren't broken. If you feel lost doing this, you are simply traversing the unknown territory of your own soul, and you are starting that incredible journey right within the four walls around you.
Ultimately, the whole shebang requires radical responsibility. Nobody, literally nobody, is going to come to your house and redesign your life for you. The responsibility is yours alone. But the moment you stop reacting to a poorly designed environment and start actively creating a system that serves your truth, everything shifts. Your future will no longer be defined by fleeting intentions or fragile willpower. It will be defined exclusively by the daily habits your newly designed room makes easy.
So, it's time to put this into practice today. Right now, I want you to physically look around the room you're sitting in. Find one specific object, a book, a decoration, a piece of furniture that represents a performance for someone else rather than your own truth. Find that physical manifestation of the persona and commit to removing it from your space today. Let that be your first decisive vote for your true identity.
And once you've identified that object and decided to let it go, I want you to physically say this phrase out loud. I choose my peace. Let that be your symbolic declaration to the world, and more importantly to yourself, that you are finally reclaiming your space. But I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. If the room you sleep in was designed to impress a society that doesn't actually care about you, who are you really waking up as every morning? It's time to find out. I'll see you in the next explainer.